Hi, everybody. It's the Pearlo Wisdom Show, and we got Joe back again. Joe, he's coming. Here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. Here he is. And yes, we got news right out of the gates, don't we? Uh, Hi, everybody. Oilers man, Weichel, thanks for coming on. You guys are always here. I love you guys. Uh, Mercer, sweet Mercer in the house. Woo, little Pearlo dance for you. Um, Rutherford, yeah. So they're they're not screwing around with experience there in Vancouver now. They're going. It's amazing how they'll go like completely the other direction when things don't work out. A lot of organizations in general, and they certainly did. That's like from Benning, who didn't have any general manager experience at all, to Rutherford, who is the king of putting together quick cup teams. That's really what Rutherford has
And a
done his
Hall
whole
of Fame.
career, and a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, and a Hall of Fame. Yeah, yeah.
He's the best at it.
So
There's no better at. There's. I don't think there's any better. Well, of course, a lot of general managers hadn't had the opportunity either. But I mean, if you want a guy for a quick cup, he seems to be the guy, right? Like he did it in Carolina, he did it in Pittsburgh. He didn't seem. He seemed to do
yeah,
no wrong. You're not going to have any draft picks left or anything like that, but
no, that's a good point. It's just from Vancouver, it's going to be interesting to see because you're trying to, of course, have. We talked about it on your show before, and I've talked about it on mine. More guys like the Pekolzins and Hoglanders come up. Where with Rutherford, you're probably not going to get more guys like that. You're probably going to get more of the veteran guys that hopefully mix in well with the Garlands and other people and kind of help you get over that hump there and get to where you need to be. Because right now you're kind of in a limbo period where I listened to one of those Twitter spaces that they have now where there was a bunch of Vancouver fans talking about it, and I thought they did a really good job where they were highlighting how Benning kind of went in the whole win now mode a little bit with getting OEL and doing that and kind of overreacted to the Thatcher Demko turning into a brick wall in the bubble playoffs there, where it's going to be interesting to see bringing in a guy like Rutherford, how going that direction even more, since that's what you would perceive is going to happen, will go, and if it will result in what Jim Benning ultimately seemed to think, which is they were a playoff and or deep into the playoff run contender with the moves he was making at least. So I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. They did name him the interim GM and the president, so it'll be interesting to see what type of GM comes in there compared to like we were talking about before the show, Montreal, where Gordon has the pretty much final say, and so it'll be interesting to see if they bring in somebody that's more of a known GM or if it's just this new kind of face of the NHL GM, where then you just know Rutherford has the final say
uh,
100%. So it'll be interesting to see
I think
what
I think
happened
I know.
with that.
I think I have a pretty good feeling of what's happening there. I think they're going to stick with Stan Schmiel. That Stan Schmiel's.
You think they're just keep Steele as the
Yeah,
GM?
I think they're just going to stick with Stan Schmiel. I mean, he's a heart and soul guy. He's a Vancouver guy. He's publicly said he'll never work for any other organization, and he's worked his way up. He doesn't have experience, but if you bring a Rutherford in, who better than to help you with all the like? There's more than just trades and draft and all that stuff like that. There's a whole general managers take care of all hockey operations stuff, even office work and all that kind of stuff like that. So their hands in
Exactly.
all of
No,
that
yeah.
stuff,
And
and Rutherford is a guy that can help him learn all that kind of stuff that he needs to do. I really think Stan Schmiel's like a very kind-hearted man who really has a passion for the Vancouver Canucks. He's worked his way up, and I think they're just going to, at the end of the year, say we're going to stick with Stan and let Rutherford and him keep on working together. But they won't say anything now because maybe Rutherford will go, you know what, I don't know if Stan's the right guy, right? But If he does,
That's
if
a
he
good point.
does,
Yeah,
then I think Stan will stay. I think that's the plan.
that's a good point, and also he has like Ian McIntyre tweeted before they named Smeal the direct interim when he thought it would be Chris Gear, Ryan Johnson, and then the two Sedines with Smeal. They have as part of the management group too as advisors all those guys, and he's pretty tight with them and been a part of all those guys that are directly involved. Of course, the Sedines the most as being heart and soul guys of Vancouver. So you have a good group as a whole there, and it would make sense to keep somebody like him around. That's such a glued in guy. As now you bring in a guy like Jim Rutherford, who now has to. He's obviously done it in the past before, but learn a new city. He's now in a Canadian city, which is different. Like Bruce Boudreau addressed when he was at the media in Vancouver, how different it is and how much of an honor it is to be coaching in a Canadian city, where that adds an added pressure. So it'll be interesting to see what he does here. If we're not Smeal, but what Jim Rutherford's able to do with his new opportunity and coaching in such a pressure market like Vancouver. So, or not coaching, managing and running the team in such a pressure market like
Yeah.
Vancouver.
Um, yeah, I honestly think that I don't see how you hire Jim Rutherford for any other reason but to try to win now. And Rutherford is not afraid to.
And I don't know if that's the right move for the
Well,
Canucks. Do you think that's the right move for the Canucks? That's
I
my
think that
question.
Rutherford can do wonders with a team with a palette of whatever he has to work with. I don't think those players are the people that are going to get you there, but he'll get rid of Myers. The first thing he's going to look at his team and go, okay, Myers isn't. I mean, we got too much of the same on D, so we got to move a guy like Myers or whatever. He'll find a way to move him, and then he'll add exactly what he thinks he needs on D. If there's one thing that's good, I mean, not one thing. Rutherford simply has been damn good at knowing what pieces to bring in to win a cup. He did it, what, 3 times? When he went out and got Phil Kessel, everybody was poo-pooing him, but they won a cup, you
Yeah,
know. So I don't think it's impossible. Look what Bergevin did with Montreal last year. Like, did he just catch lightning in a bottle? Maybe, but Rutherford did it twice apparently. So he'll use
yeah, with
whatever assets he has to get the team to be exactly the way he thinks it's going to have a chance to make it, and that's the only way he looks at it. So if you're going to take a guy like that, then he's the best guy to possibly do it. I think he's got an uphill battle.
yeah.
I think he's got a real uphill battle with that lineup to do that, though.
Oh, he does, but I think what Lauren's also talking about when he said Vancouver will find out what Pittsburgh and Carolina already know. I would want him to verify this, but I think that has to go with the future, the backlog. Once if you don't win a cup with Rutherford, which he has had that happen in Carolina and Pittsburgh, he's gonna they basically damn your system that is already not the best in Vancouver, and you're not gonna have anybody to picks to
Oh
restock
yeah,
it like you
yep.
said. That if you don't win, your future, like you saw in Carolina, it took them a bit to recover when Rutherford left. Pittsburgh, they don't have the great farm system right now. It's taking them a bit to draft people to build that back up because he doesn't leave you with much picks or much of a foundation below. He's just all about building it above, which is not a bad thing if you want to win a cup. But that's why it's more, is that the right thing for Vancouver right now? Because if it doesn't work, they already don't have. They're starting with a very just medium farm system at best as it is, and then you're going to damn it even more. So that's kind of what's going to be interesting to see going
Oh yeah,
forward.
there's no doubt about it. Is it the right move for Vancouver? All I know is if that's your choice, if you're in that mode, Rutherford is the guy you hire. So the one thing they did is that. Whether it was the right choice, like you're going to see trades that you didn't even see coming out of him. The first thing I think Rutherford is going to do is going to put depth. He's good at building depth on the roster. He's not good at building depth in your farm system. But I think guys like Besser and guys like that, they probably got to keep their phone close to or ears close to the phone because he's going to take pieces like that and he's going to grab like 3 players that can play almost now or now that can fill depth in that roster because that's what they really need. And they're going to be darn good ones. Besser is a really good player. So he'll do really good. Now, I don't know. He'll watch the team for a while, and I do trust that he'll make them more competitive than they ever would have been under Benny. But will he be able to do it without trading first? We'll see. I hope so because they're in trouble already, like you said, in their farm system. So
Yeah, they because the two guys that were the primary guys are guys that are already up, which are Hoglander, both 20-year-olds, Hoglander and Pekolzin, that are already in their core right now, playing as forwards every night, in and out. Where there's a couple guys that I like what I've seen when it's from Abbotsford, like Costin, Foch, or Lockwood or others, but I don't think there'd be much of other than bottom sixers if they like make it in the NHL. Like there'd be like where Jason Dickinson should be playing, like in the bottom six type players, and not like he has been playing sometimes on the first line for whatever
mm-hmm.
reason. So like that's how some of these other guys are, but they need to get in other Hoglanders too if they want to keep that going. That's why it was a weird hire. It's like I give Jim Benning all the credit for his Hall of Fame career, winning with Carolina and winning with Pittsburgh. But to be quite honest, when he stepped aside, I didn't envision him coming back. So it was kind of a surprise thing for me once I saw he was going to be the guy they went with. Being he's 72 years of age now, he's a guy that once he stepped aside, I thought that was almost him just saying, I'm going to retire at this point. And then he's coming back to a team that most of us, I think, were anticipating. I'm not sure about all of us, but most of us were anticipating we're at least going to retool after realizing they were not where they thought they were. Where now it looks like they're going to go the complete opposite of that and just go with a full bore, let's push for it and hope that we kind of catch it and start recovering from not a great start and start seeing the offense and the pace and the quicker tape to tape passing we've seen since Boudreaux's come in and hope that continues if not Benning, if Rutherford, both named Jim, if Rutherford makes the right moves, like you said, to add to the roster and getting rid of kind of the dead weight players in terms of cap, in like Tyler Myers. So people like that.
Oh, Denny Barlow says Spurgeon is playing tonight. Okay, I was a little, I
Oh,
was a
nice.
little bit off Minnesota tonight. San Jose's been pretty strong, but if Spurgeon's in, I may lean back over to Minnesota again.
Well, Minnesota's been very good though without Jared Spurgeon.
I know
They
they've
had
just
on
been playing a
TNT.
crap load of hockey. That's all. It's just
Oh yeah,
it's this
yeah,
is
because they had on
they
TNT like
went
how
they
much.
just traveled from Edmonton to 2.5 hour flight from Edmonton to San Jose to play a San Jose team that is playing really tough right now. They just beat a really good Calgary team. That 2.5 hour flight, that's a long flight. And then you get one day off. That's
Mhm.
going through what? Is that through
Minnesota did beat.
three time zones? 2 time zones?
I think three, but I'm not the best with
I
time
think
zones,
it's
so I'm not
two.
the
I think
best
it's
to.
a 2 hour
It's
difference.
it's two. Okay, it's two. But Minnesota though, one thing they did beat Toronto on this win streak they're on, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Jared Spurgeon was out for that
Oh
game
yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So like he's been out for most of this
Oh yeah.
7 game streak they've been
Yeah.
on, and it's been cool to like see they had him on where it was one of those like behind the scenes things on TNT, NHL and TNT here in the States where he was talking about being out and everything. Where they shouldn't have spent more time with his family, but he was talking about how everyone else has stepped up in the leadership role around the team. And that's when you know you had kind of like we talked about yesterday with the teams. They kind of have that different feel to them, the Minnesota Wild this year, where they have that everybody pick me up mentality that it seems like nothing, like if even a guy that key to your defense who's been your anchor, your captain, goes out, you're going to still have that everybody pick me up and you're on a 7 game winning streak with how many games you've been playing in unison, like you've been saying.
I'm still probably fading that game. It's so tough to do. I don't even know why. It's actually a little ridiculous that you got to travel from Edmonton to San Jose and only get one day off and play a game. That's a little ridiculous. I've done it. I've had to do it when I was playing. When we were playing tournaments, we had our flight canceled and we had a tournament in Los Angeles, and we had to go from Edmonton to Los Angeles when I was playing, and that like you got it 2.5 two with the 2.5 hour like the time zone change plus the jet lag and everything. Now these guys are a little more used to jet lag, but the parity in the league is so close right now. Any heavy legs whatsoever can have the other team ruin you, whoever they are, right? So it's going to be a really tough team. That's going to be a really tough game. And then not only that, they got to play San Jose. They have a day off. Vegas, LA. That's brutal, man. That is brutal.
Yeah, they're going through the gauntlet where St. Louis, who of course is the other team that's going to be as part of our Winter Classic this year, they've had a lot of the injuries and COVID issues, mostly the COVID list, that's really bit them in the butt. Where that's why they haven't been as successful of late. Just as a quick like Winter Classic matchup update, where I think both of those teams are going to continue to be successful on the overall season. But the Wild, that what you just highlighted and how much the teams they had to play and the teams they continue to have to play and how quick and going through time zone, that just highlights how impressive and how good of a season they're having. With everybody like we talked about yesterday, picking up their pace. Rask is playing great at third line center. Ryan Hartman all of a sudden is a center, where normally he's been a winger his entire career. So, like, you have all these things going in the right direction for them. Where if it keeps going this way, I would say by like my birthday is Christmas Day. By after that, I would be start talking about how they definitely are more of in that contention in terms of the cup contention and not just a playoff run to the conference finals type contention race.
Right. Okay, well, we didn't even talk about the games yesterday, so we should probably get that. There was only four. And I suppose, for anybody new here, we already talked about the Rutherford thing. Uh, I, I on, whoops. We already talked about the Rutherford thing. I believe this Stan Schmiel will probably stay there. And it was what as far as Rutherford in his past, he won 3 cups. That's all you got to say. He won 3 cups. He went to Pittsburgh. He built that team. He didn't seem to make a single mistake when he was building those teams.
Yeah.
So,
Also, to say the one thing before we move into the game, Lorne, I saw earlier today the update on the Coyotes. They already commented on it and said that they're going to pay off the arena fees, and that was due to human error
yeah,
that somebody made a
yeah.
mistake. And that's how a human error made a mistake for a million and something
It
bucks,
actually
but
isn't.
that's what
It
happened.
isn't all that
And
much money when you're talking about that kind of money. Right?
no, but they're gonna pay it off, and they're gonna be good for everything.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't
And
be
they're
moved
not
out of their
selling the
arena.
team. They came out and said that they plan to stay there. I'll tell you what. That being the case, no owner, if he decided to sell the team, I don't blame him at all. Like this owner, this owner is going to be a god in Arizona as they get through here. He's losing so much freaking money; it's crazy out of that. Uh, I had Vegas to win that game. So, all right, let's go look at the games now because they're already talking about them. So, I picked Vegas to win that game, although it was pretty lucky. So, I'm not going to brag about it too much. Flyers, oh my gosh. Like I said, just taking way too long to make plays. I don't know what they're doing. They look like they're going through the motions. That Devils team was ripe and ready to be beat last night. Carter Hart played well. Nothing to do on the goaltenders here whatsoever. Just
Sanheim played
no
awful.
pace at all to that lineup. Sanheim would be great if he played on a team that would play with pace. If you're going to plod through the neutral zone, Sanheim's no good to you whatsoever.
Well, it's also he made a couple. The difference with him is he's a good. Like I agree with that because he's a good skater for his size, but he also at times, and I've agreed with people that wrote this in their pieces this year around the area. He doesn't use his body as effectively as he could. He falls into that Tyler Myers category of you're a big ass dude. and you need to use the God-given size you were given to the best of your ability. Where yesterday you saw it on one play drive into the net, where he had a terrible game overall, but got a chance in front of the net, and then on the defensive end, he wiped out on the one goal by Brad, and then on the other goal, I don't know what. Risto could have picked him up, but Sanheim was particularly supposed to be guarding Dawson Mercer. I don't know what he was doing on that play, which was a beautiful deflection by, like a Pavelski-like deflection by Mercer, but still, he didn't block out the front of the net. So I would say that was a piss poor game by him. But overall, I haven't knocked Sanheim like some others have, just because if you've looked at the line grades, the only defensive line this entire season that has been graded not awful in most games has been when Sanheim's been with Rasmus or Sanheim's been with whoever he's been with, and usually it's been Ristolainen. So like I haven't got on him as much, but his game yesterday, he does make those little mistakes and not use his body as effectively as he could, which is why he was picked in the first round, because people thought he would develop into that more. He still has to develop that side of his game more, but he hasn't been the problem defensively, that's for sure. The problem defensively has been the fact that Ivan Provorov is a shell of himself this entire season. And you have a guy that didn't play all of last season in Nick Seeler, so I'm not going to get on Nick Seeler for his play, but you have a guy that didn't play all of last season in Nick Seeler playing most of your game. Where obviously picking up Connaughton, that might change things a little bit, but that's
Oh,
just how it is,
Connaughton's
and
just a defensive defenseman. He's a good
it's
guy to have.
it's to be
He's a good
expected.
guy to have for injuries and stuff like that. But yeah, Lauren says they're still playing AV system. They're not playing AV system. They're not list. They didn't. They're not. There is a confidence problem in that room that AV couldn't solve, and now Yo has to solve it because those guys are
Well, the other
taking
thing, they
way
haven't
too
had a
long to
practice.
make a play, and that's pure confidence. They just they don't know what they're going to do to a man. I've seen it from every single guy except for maybe Giroux. Giroux is about the only guy that I see that's playing with any confidence right now, and until they're doing that, no system is going to matter. No
Also
system is
against
going
the
to matter.
Devils, yeah. Also against the Devils, I wouldn't even say Giroux was fine in that game, but the forward that I would say had the most energy, that he has been a wavy confidence guy since he's been back up. But I thought Frost was the most energized forward on the ice.
Frost, yeah. I mean, Frost plays.
Anybody that's playing to
He's
stay
at
in the
least
line
playing
is going to have
fast. Yeah.
where yeah, where I think that's why they called up Noah Cates' brother Jackson. He's nothing overly special, but he can pass the puck a bit and play fourth line center for you a little bit quicker than the guys that have been up already. Where when you have those guys in the lineup, they're going to play to stay in the lineup. So that's going to add an added energy that you hope other people can jump on to the back of, which hasn't happened yet. But you're hoping eventually that will happen. Where you had the Colorado game, there was some promising offensive signs. Then it just went to the dumpster fire again in this game, where the whole day just looked like your offense took a literal nap and just wasn't there the entire game, basically. But the other side of it, like Lauren was saying, um, for the Flyers playing AV system, in part, they haven't had a practice yet with Yo because of how all the traveling's been. Where the Flyers, if they still likely aren't to get one because they have to travel to Vegas, and then they have to travel from Vegas to Arizona. So they haven't had the chance for him to really implement much other than a little bit of morning skates. That until we have after Saturday's game, the Flyers don't have a game until Tuesday against New Jersey. That would probably be when you would see Tuesday maybe a little bit of a difference in the actual stylistic play that's out there to the most effect, because there should be a practice that you would be able to get day in between there. When you come from Arizona to fly back, you would have a practice day. I would think at least one before you play the New Jersey Devils at home, who we haven't played well the past two games, but you play them at home on Tuesday. So that's the other side of that equation for why the system doesn't look like it's changed that much. But in game one of Yo's era, it looked like our offense was at least moving a little bit quicker in terms of reaction, where then all of a sudden they were dead as a doornail again
Well,
against the.
yeah, what I was just talking about with Minnesota having to make that from Edmonton to San Jose. This is even worse for Philadelphia. From New Jersey to Vegas, are you freaking kidding me? That is ridiculous. One day off and then you got a back to back. Their
Yeah,
legs are going to be so dead. I won't even take them against Arizona. Like that's the other thing is Philadelphia is getting a crappy end of the schedule here too. But yeah, give him a little bit of time. When's he going to get time? You got a day off. You're not going to be practicing hard after a flight to Vegas from New Jersey. You got to rest, get some sleep, and come back and play Vegas. Will demolish them, absolutely demolish them in that game, and then play Arizona. And then after that, I think they might have. Do they get a couple days to practice and figure out what Yo wants to do with
yeah,
this
they
team?
probably. That's what I was saying. They should like that Devils game. You should, excuse me, see a little bit of a change because they're not playing until Tuesday from Saturday. So I would think when they fly back, they would probably obviously have off, I would believe, on Sunday, and then practice probably Monday, and then also have the morning skate on Tuesday. So I would think you would have those two moments to really implement kind of the different like unique things he wants to put in that he's been throwing at them little by little, but they've only really had morning skates to do it. And like Boudreaux said when he first came into Vancouver, you can only kind of give little pinches of things, basically paraphrasing what he said at a time, until you actually get your guys in
Well, I
practice.
like what Sutter said. Like for me for Yo, I don't even think he's going to talk X's and O's right now because it don't matter. If you're taking as long as they are to make plays, no X and O is going to help you. You got to get that puck off your stick like right away first. I don't even care if you cough it up all game right now. I don't even care. Just get it off your stick within 5 seconds. Then once we got that, then we'll start talking X's and O's. But first, play the way you play. Just play with your just have fun out
Yeah,
there, almost like a pond hockey thing. But don't worry about your decision making right now. Just trust your instincts, pass it quick, get it going, get the puck moving as fast as you can, and then we'll worry about X's and O's after that. But until then, uh, X's and O's really mean nothing right now. I don't think they're overthinking. They're not confident in where they're going to put the puck, all that kind of stuff. So it seems to me like they don't know if they should dump it in. They don't know if they want to pass it here. And yeah, you would think,
yeah,
okay, let's set up X's and O's to do that. But I would say that I don't think that's good. That's just going to confuse them even more. Right now, just follow your instincts
I
and go
agree.
from there.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think the problem is yesterday, you see it sometimes early in the game where in the first 3 to 4 minutes, the Flyers, like in yesterday's game, I can't remember who made the pass, but they made a quick pass in the neutral zone. And then it ended up getting iced by accident. They did it again. It didn't connect, but they were making the quicker passes. And then because it didn't connect, like you were saying, at this point, you just need to keep just going by your instincts to get that log jammed in your head again to do that and then worry about the execution factor of it once you get that locked in again to just kind of trust your instinct where they just went away from it after two plays at the first like I would say was the 3 minutes to 4 minutes into the game last night that they didn't work because they didn't get the pass completed like they wanted but they did do quicker passing and then they went well this didn't work so we can't do this anymore which is not the correct mindset to have you want to try to keep moving quicker because that's how you're going to be able to play teams better. Where you see so many teams that play at a quicker pace than the Flyers win ugly games. Where if you're playing that slow, you're just going to be easy to beat. Heck, even the Flyers earlier this season, when they were not playing this slow but struggling a little bit, like against the Capitals, they were able to muster out and show some kind of fight to be able to have a 2-1 win, if I remember correctly. I believe that game was. So like you just don't have any of that right now. You've got nothing where you showed some promise against Colorado and then it all just went completely downhill against the New Jersey Devils again.
Lauren has a thing about DeBoer. I don't know. He's talking about how will Eichel take to Vegas' style. I'll tell you how. He's going to love every minute of it. He's going to sop it up like crazy. Are you kidding me? I love that the way Vegas is playing. They are swarming teams in the offensive zone. Uh, they play what I call what hockey is supposed to be like. That's what hockey is supposed to be like right there. And Eichel added to that is going to be insane. If he's fully healthy, that team is going to be next to impossible to beat. That's why I say like with the Minnesota Wild and stuff like that. Like I love the way they play, but they are not beating Vegas in the playoffs right now as it stands. I don't believe they're beating Vegas in the playoffs right now
Well,
as it stands.
no, if Eichel obviously is back and feeling fully going at that point, you basically have the Kucherov effect at that point, where you have somebody to the nth degree
Yeah,
coming back for you at the most opportune time to come back. Where if you're Vegas, the only question you have at that point is where do you immediately slot Eichel when he comes back into the 1C because that line's consistently with Stevenson been one of the
probably
best,
not. No, you probably. I don't know
or do
where you
you
put him to tell you the honest truth.
or do you slide him into the 2C and let Carlson move down, which could work to 3C, and then either let Waugh or Colasar, probably Waugh would stay in and play
It's a good
4C.
problem to
Uh,
have. I know
yeah, it's
that.
a good problem to have because Stone, Pacioretty, and Stevenson, when together, are a heck of a line that might be one of those just chemistry tandems you don't want to mess with. Where that's not a bad problem to have either because you turn Chandler Stevenson into the heck of a player, and then obviously they've got the most out of guys like Carson and Marchessault too. That's why when they brought in Nolan Patrick from us, I remember when I read an article in the offseason, people were interested in what they would do with him because they've fixed guys that didn't fully work out in their previous places already. But he's of course been injured. He's supposed to come back soon though, so it'll be interesting to see where they put him. Probably at 4C. But Vegas, they're going to be filthy. They're already coming around, and they're going to be even more ridiculous. They were able to battle out that win that I honestly thought the Stars were going to hang on, and then the last 10 minutes, Vegas went ballistic and then was able to close out that game and get that 5-4 win over the Stars, who were, of course, the hottest team coming into last night's game. Where now the Wild are probably the hottest team in hockey. So, that was a very good. That was a very good game by them last night, and they've been playing very good of late. They've been a little bit inconsistent throughout the start of the season, but that's what you would expect from a team that's had some guys
Oh
banged up, and particularly a player
yeah, yeah.
Carlson banged up.
They
And
did
Leonard
pretty
took a little
well
bit.
considering their top left and right winger was hurt for quite a while.
Yeah, and Pacioretty was
Like
hurt for a while.
Pacioretty,
Yeah, exactly.
Stone, they had Carlson out, and they did pretty well. They stayed close to 500 through all of that. My biggest concern with Vegas right now is that Lehner has looked shaky here and there. He hasn't looked like he's took the bull by the horns and really decided to shut it down. He got pulled last night against Dallas, and Vegas happened to come back. A little bit fluky, but how many times have they done that? Vegas is one of the best.
At coming back, they're kind of like the Oakland A's in that one season in baseball, where they just were the comeback train team. Where the Vegas Golden Knights definitely know how to do that well. I feel like last night. What's up, Hockey News? What's up, Bill? What's up, everybody? But I feel like last night, Vegas just kind of kept the intensity going, and they just never really wavered from just knowing they were going to go full bore and play their game, even though they were down until the final. They tied it up and then were able to get the other two goals in the last 10 minutes. So like they were able to just figure that game out and get it going because Dallas did play their game. They're more just trying to keep you to the outside but allow shots game, and were up 4-2 in the third period. But then Amadio, Stone, and then Pacioretty scored. Who of course Stone and Pacioretty were out earlier, so like you said, those are key factors. Those two coming back. Vegas is again a Stanley Cup contending team. It's just Leonard, I think, is a waves and tides because he's such an emotional goaltender and somebody that, like me, has the anxiety disorder thing.
Yeah,
So he's going to have that stuff where Yesterday, I think he got pulled more as a team energy thing, where DeBoer wasn't seeing it out of them enough. Where I didn't think he played awful. I thought he just the team there was more of like we need to wake up this team type thing, which it did. It worked, and then Brassois came and played fine, and then they were able to carry it to get the win. So I think it was more of one of those moves more than it being you just flat out had a terrible game.
Uh, he's saying that Vegas goalie weak. I wouldn't say when Lehner's on, he's unstoppable. That's the thing. When they're talking about like Minnesota and Vegas. I think Lehner gives you a better chance to win a cup than Talbot. I think Talbot gets you a better chance to win a series or two. In other words, he's going to probably be steady, but Lehner, if if you take Talbot super hot or Lehner super hot, I'll take Lehner. When he gets super hot, he's like almost unstoppable, right? Like it's almost impossible to score on Lehner if he's super hot.
Well, that's because Rob Lehner also is one of the biggest. He takes up if
Oh
he's
yeah,
hot, and he's a positional goaltender when he's hot, where he takes up 95% of the net pretty much.
yeah.
So, yeah, he's one of those guys that if he can get on his game, which he's been better of late. Minus last night, he was a little off, but again, I think that was more of a let's change the energy of this team. Dallas is kind of playing us into their game now. Yes, we're getting the shots, but we're down, and that's the way Dallas wins. They kind of frustrate you that way. And then that kind of did do exactly what they wanted it to do. It changed the energy, and Vegas was able to have a great closeout to that game
I
to win.
love it when Vegas like a Vegas defensive system is so aggressive and it's completely dependent um, on anticipation. They anticipate so freaking well. It's unbelievable. Like when they get on a roll and they know exactly what you're going to do, when they really have the opposition figured out, like as soon as the puck's on the stick, they are all over you. It's to me, it's you don't, and there's not too many teams in the league that play that type of defense anymore. Like with that kind of speed, they almost take risks in a lot of ways, but they do it well. Sort of like what I think Minnesota does in the offensive zone. They take a lot of risks with their passes and stuff like that, but they do it extremely well. It would be a fun series. So, Minnesota's defense is elite. Sorry, dude. Not man on man, no. Kulikov and Merrill are nowhere near elite 5'6" defense or 5'6" defensemen. They're not.
They are an elite offensive group. I think it's Denny's focusing all on the offensive side of things because they are the highest scoring defense. They push the play. That's what Everson wants to push the play from the defense
Yeah,
to the offense.
they
Their
got a
forward core
beautiful
with the Kaprizov,
system and they know
whatever.
where each other
Uh,
are all over
where
the place. It's great.
where Vegas's defensive system is, you have some guys that obviously push the offense there, like Petrangelo and even McNabb can do a little bit of things, but you have a more aggressive in the defensive zone, push the get in your face, more defensive style than the more push the offensive style, unless if you are Petrangelo. So it's just a little bit of a different defensive system. They run a more I feel like D on D, like just pure D'ing up players. Vegas probably has the better defensive defense, but if you want to have the scoring output, then yeah, that would definitely be Minnesota. But granted, Minnesota has a very good defense with Spurgeon
Well,
in because that makes all the
Brodin and
difference.
stuff like that. It's their bottom pairing that
Yeah,
they're pretty good top four. But I mean, you're talking about Theodore, Peter Angelo, McNabb, Zach Whitecloud's one of the most underrated. And then Alex Martinez isn't even in. If Alex Martinez is in that top four, that is spectacular. That's a
and
spectacular
then
top
Hag's not a bad defenseman either. Nicholas Hag's a pretty good
four. Yeah,
defenseman too. He's just not the quickest
yeah,
defenseman, but
he's
yeah,
not
he
bad.
he does his
Yeah.
job.
Anyways,
Yeah.
let's move on to the other games there. I didn't see the end of that game. I went to bed. I put a late pick in on Vegas to win though. I to come back in the third and I got it.
Nice.
I went 4 for 4 last night. I had Colorado ML, Colorado over, Vegas was alive, and I had Philadelphia, New Jersey. Uh, in when it was still 0-0, I took under 4.5 because I could tell Philadelphia wasn't going to score nothing. It was just a question of whether New Jersey was going to win 5-0. So I put under 4.5. So we nailed that. bpalpicks.com. Check it out. Okay, next game. Where am I going here? Here. So, okay, Avalanche versus the Rangers. That was over all day. That poor Huska, poor guy.
Yeah,
Putting him up
he had
again. I
no
mean,
chance in
I don't
that
blame the
game.
Rangers for doing it. They had no choice, but man, that was a rough team to have your first game against, eh?
Yeah, I mean that game was what you said. I didn't think it would be as high scoring because you had the Rangers getting the energy of playing for the kid, plus the energy I was talking about with Kemper with the Avalanche. But I thought the Avalanche would win, where the Avalanche took that energy and then some of Darcy Kemper coming back, and then destroyed them 7-3. Like that game wasn't really close. I did feel bad for the kid having to get just absolutely shellacked out there. That was one of the excuse me, more off defensive games for the New York Rangers, and yeah, they just didn't have a chance in that game. Or not Carolina, Colorado came out and just punched them away from the beginning jump of that game, pretty much.
Yeah, it's Rangers were on a back to back. They got a first time. It was just a bad spot for the Rangers. Kemper comes back. He plays okay, but he's playing against a guy, like I said, his AHL numbers were actually not too bad, but it's a lot to ask for a guy to first game to go up against a powerhouse like Colorado like that when your team is tired off a back to back. It's just too bad. It's just a bad situation. I like to see those teams go against each other when nobody's tired, and I think it would be a lot better game because I really like the Rangers. I had them in the beginning of the year making the playoffs. One thing I was right about, I thought LA would be better this year, and I thought New Jersey would. I have a tendency to root for those young teams though, a little too early. So, but there was a thought while you're talking about that. I'm going to see some of the things that happened in that game, but um, he's asking about Lindgren there, who he was in the Montreal system for a long time. He's going to be playing for the Blues tonight. He played in Montreal probably, I think maybe 10 or 20 games if I remember correctly. He's been an AHLer for most of his career,
I'll
a good
pull it up in a
AHLer.
second.
So
Yes, yeah, a very good
how do you think he'll
AHLer.
do in St. Louis tonight?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because, of course, I thought this was a good opportunity for a guy that was actually playing well this year, breaking out himself, Billy Huso, to come in and kind of establish himself as being a very good, maybe 1B compared to a backup in playing well, but then he went down. So it's just the domino effect of unfortunate events for the goaltending in St. Louis, where they did also bring in John Gillies, the big netminder, who was signed to a PTO with the Phantoms and then ended up getting a two-way contract with the Blues. But he's played in one game this year. He did pretty solid in relief, getting the 3 saves. But for Springfield, he's been very good in 10 games, a 9.25 save percentage. And then when it came to Laval the last couple seasons, he was very solid. Not as good, but just a solid goaltender for Laval, who didn't always play the most squeaky clean defensive game in front of him, where the Thunderbirds play a much better defensive game. The Blues system in general just plays a much better defensive game. So I think that plays a part into it. So I think he'll do solid. I don't think you can over expect. He's been a very good career AHL, where he's been a solid substitute in here for a couple games NHLer. So I'm not going to give over expectations, but I think he'll do solid. And you would think a Blues team is going to be motivated to kind of step up here and play a very good game in front of, knowing they don't have their A level goaltenders in there. In Billy Huso and or of course Jordan Bennington, they're going to kind of probably play a little bit more defensive game, I would
Yeah,
think.
and
So
Charlie Lindgren's been grinding it out for a while. He's only 27 years old. This is a huge opportunity for him. So I imagine
yeah, now
it
he
all
has
depends
the
if he looks
opportunity.
at it the right way. Like and he has no safeguard. They're not going to put this John Gillies guy in, not likely. So he's got to stop him, you know. But this is the opportunity Charlie's been waiting for. If he's able to put her out, you know, he's 27. He's still got lots of life in him yet. How many guys have we seen 27 years old go and start taking off from there? Goaltenders for sure.
Yeah, well, Gillies though he is a little similar. I would say Lindgren's had the better
Yeah,
AHL career, but they're both
he was in
27. Gillies
Calgary's
is a former.
organization
Yeah, he
too.
was in Calgary. Yeah, he's played a couple NHL games. They're kind of similar paths. It's just Lindgren's been a better career AHL and a little bit of a more proven guy. But Gillies has been a solid goaltender in the minors throughout his career. Hasn't shown it in the NHL, but for both of them, depending how long people are out for, if there's any back to backs, I don't pay full attention to. I just watch the games at night. I don't pay full attention to the back to backs for the Blues. He might end up getting put in there for a game, and then if he plays well, it'll be nice to see that for him because he played well in the one game he played to for the Phantom. It was just annoying because I had a seat behind the net and the dude's 6'7". So unless if he crouched down, you couldn't even see at the other end of the ice all the time without standing up. So it was kind of funny.
All right. All right, we'll look at okay, what's the next game? I just noticed, like, don't talk. I won't talk about it too much, but Nazim Kadri has totally changed his life around, man. That guy is flying out there. Colorado in the West with Vegas and Minnesota, I think, are the teams to beat.
Also, Logan O'Connor's a great under,
Logan
but that's just
O'Connor has
that
been hitting it
undrafted
out of the
pickup.
park.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's that team is
he schooled
rounding out pretty
Keandre
well.
Miller twice.
Yeah,
He schooled Keandre Miller, who's obviously a very solid young
yeah.
defenseman, twice in yesterday's game to score both of his
Yeah, I
goals.
had I did it. By the way, I did a video today, and you'll see it. I'll put it up tonight on Gallagher getting traded, and Logan O'Connor was part of that. So take a look at that. Canucks versus Bruins, and I didn't pull the trigger on this, but I really did believe the Canucks were going to win this game. It was just a really it was close, and it was close. It was a fun game to watch. I think everybody right now, especially because of Bruce Boudreau, because everybody loves Bruce Boudreau. I think everybody's kind of getting behind the Canucks right now. Don't they feel like that team that could bail themselves out and be the, Cinderella team or something like that? I don't know if it'll happen, but it's a lot to ask. But they're pretty far out of it. But they kind of have that feeling, don't they?
Yeah, they've won a back to back. They've been 500 in the last 10, so they're trending in the right direction. You have a very good young goaltender, so all those things point to if you can just get it going. If you can get Pedersen going, like Boudreaux talked about, Besser, of course, scored again, and he looks very good since Bruce has come in for his first couple games. He pulled him aside, and it looked like that's led to very good things for Brock. So I think, yeah, if this can keep going in this direction, then what we talked about before is irrelevant. What I brought up about is just the right direction for them to go with Rutherford. Then, yeah, if Rutherford wants to tax it and then do everything and it works, then fantastic. I am very happy for Vancouver fans and very happy for those people I listen to their Twitter space in and would not mind seeing Vancouver win the cup at all because Thatcher Demko is one of my favorite goaltenders to watch. I love Elias Pettersson and I love Besser and all the other guys on their team. But it's something we still have to remain to be seen. But if they just go on a good run, it's like Bruce Boudreau said. At this point, you're just trying to make this a winning hockey team from here on out. And if that leads to us making the playoffs,
Yeah,
fantastic. If not, then that's fine too. But we just want to have good vibes basically going
yeah,
forward. And you have seen that with the team. They squeak out a win, but not a better way to put it is they battle out a win against a good Boston team in a 2-1 faction. And Thatcher Demko plays a very good night. Sway also played good, and it was a good goalie battle where it was kind of whoever got the two first wins the game type of game in that one.
yeah. But they played. They killed some penalties. That was something. You don't see that very often. And again, penalty kill, all that stuff like that comes down to confidence. And for some reason, Green, I'm sure he tried many ways. I think Green's going to be, I still say Green's a good coach. But I don't know if there isn't a coach out there besides maybe Barry Trotz, like the elite of the elite, that, and Green's really young and learning, that get to a point sometimes that it doesn't seem to matter what angle they hit at, they just can't get that confidence up with the team, right? And it just seemed to hit a wall. And then you got a guy like Bruce Boudreau come in. I listen to Sirius Radio, and he's on there all the time. He was on there quite a bit. And he's one of the funniest NHL guys I've ever heard. So
Yeah.
it's a perfect guy to come in and loosen things up and stuff like that. And that's what it looks like they're playing like right now.
I agree, and also you obviously remember Paul Bissonnette, the fighter from back in the day, played with the Coyotes, multiple different organizations. He's on a couple podcasts and on TNT. That's exactly what he said. Where other teams, you want a guy that has more of that structural, is very structural head coach. Well, with the Canucks, they looked like all season they were just gripping their sticks too tight, playing way too not conservative, but almost conservative, just because they were overthinking everything and like basically just second guessing themselves on most things. Where now with Bruce Boudreau coming in, it seems like everybody has loosened up and has kind of opened up the waves to seeing them look like they're just having fun on the ice. Like we talked about what the Flyers have to do earlier, the Canucks are doing. They have looked like they're just getting back to the basics and having a good time playing the game that they love back again on the ice, where before it looked like they were kind of just basically pushing through and gripping their sticks too tight, playing a bad style of hockey for the last stretch run of the Green era, where it's starting off good in the Bruce Boudreau era. So
Yeah, I mean, he will change the energy of the team, and I think he'll succeed there, and I'm rooting for him because I love coaches like that. Okay, next game. What was who scored in the shootout last night? I can't remember who it was, but that's all
uh, one was Bo. I thought Bo was Bo was it was JT Miller as the other goal. So Bo Horvat, JT
right. Oh,
Miller.
that okay, leader. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Pedersen's still struggling a bit there, but I know that when Pedersen had he put Pedersen out first for the shootout. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's what Boudreau does, right? You got to get a guy confidence up. You got to show confidence in him. So they put him first in the shootout, and then when he didn't get it, he went off a stick and frustrated. And immediately they panned over to Pedersen, and Boudreau had his hands on his shoulders, like, don't worry about it, kid. You're amazing. He's building up his confidence right out of the bat, right? That's the only thing you can do with a
Mm-hmm.
guy who's slumping is just keep on feeding him positivity. And that's where I think Green made the biggest mistake. He just, I don't even know if it was a mistake because, like, I'm sure he tried that, but it just never worked or didn't do it right. I don't know.
Well, everybody has, like I said, everybody has a different structure. Where Green seems more like kind of like a very structured, just by the book head coach, where he might not always think of the morale booster. Like Bruce Boudreau is a morale booster, players coach first and foremost, where he thinks of that sometimes before he even thinks of play strategy. Where I think Green is one of those guys where there's no wrong way to do it. But when you get into a situation where you have to build a guy up, you would want somebody more like Bruce Boudreau than a guy like Travis Green, who's more of a structural coach that goes, let me figure out my system, and then I'll worry about that type of stuff second, where it's the opposite for Bruce Boudreau.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we got is it one more game to go to? Yeah, the Golden Knights we talked about that pretty much already. It was just I don't understand the love affair with Holtby in Dallas. That's about the only thing I can say. I know he's had a pretty good, he's did all right, whatever the case may be, and he's a guy that runs on pride, Holtby. If he's running good, if he's feeling like he's on top of the world and the best thing since sliced bread, That's when he's at his best. And he looks like that. They've showed him before when he started and stuff like that. He has that swagger about him. And I'm not putting it all on Holtby here, but that's a lot of goals to be scored. And he's been playing well. I mean, before this, they didn't allow more than 2 goals in 9 games, right? So what are you going to say? But this is Vegas. This is a totally different thing. And this is what I was saying before this game started. They haven't come up against a Vegas yet. They did a lot of those things against teams that this Vegas team will beat you down in the offensive zone. Pretty heavy. Golden Knights outshot them 45-23. That's pretty impressive when you're talking about a Stars team that's been doing as well as they have the last little while, right?
Yeah, but still, I mean, even so, in this game was one of those games that Vegas, like I said, just kept sticking to their game plan. They're one of those teams that just never waver, and they got the all the goals basically in the last 10 minutes of the third period to be able to push them over because one was at 9:59, the Amadio goal, where then they had the Stone and Pacioretty goal on a round out where clutch time Pacioretty came up again with the winning goal. So I think this team just knows how to figure it out in any way, shape, or form. They beat the hottest team coming in the Dallas Stars. And I thought Braden Holtby yesterday, honestly, probably played his worst game of the season. He had a couple goals, like the one that Pacioretty scored, for example, where he got off the post a little bit quickly trying to capture the rebound. But he didn't look as poised in that game. But he has looked good overall. And like I always said, I feel like Ottinger's the guy that they're eventually run with. But for now, you still want a tandem because you don't want to have, like I talked about with Campbell, you don't want to have too many games under anyone's belt at this point of the season. If both guys are doing well, there's nothing wrong with tandem and using a tandem back and forward because obviously Adobin's been scratched or out and hasn't been good this year when in. So
Yeah. Apparently, Devondre said half the Stars had the flu. I watched that game last night. I didn't watch all of it, but I didn't hear any of the commentators mention anything about that. But if that's the case, that would explain a lot for sure. Okay, so we'll go. We got an hour now, and they are really, at least Bill really wants to talk about that Tampa Bay game tonight. Tampa Bay, Toronto game, whichever one you're a fan of, either way. The interesting game. I'm gonna bring up. This is a tough game. This is a tough game. The Lightning. I just love their energy right now. Tampa Bay. I would almost be more inclined to say Tampa Bay was going to lose if it was like a team like Buffalo because they play down to their competition so much. But honestly, on this one, I'm pretty much on the fence on. What do you think about this game?
well, recently they both literally been the same in their last 10. They're both 7-2-1, so both teams have been pretty much equals. But in their last few games, Toronto has a more recent loss. They've just on a win one. They won their last game where Tampa's won their last four. Um, this is kind of one of those like we talked about yesterday, how we had a couple flip the coin games. This definitely fits into the category of one of those flip the coin games. It is in Toronto. They're going to have the backing of that home crowd, which obviously I never been there to stadium. I want to get a chance to see, but when you see it on TV and hear it through the crowd, like you can tell how loud that place gets. Um, I feel like I will give a minuscule lean to the Toronto Maple Leafs being home and just how good of a season they've had this year to be able to pull it out and win this game. But it's not by much. It's by like the skin of a teeth, basically, because I think this really is a flip of a coin type game.
Um, yeah, Stamkos is in. Joseph is back. That's pretty huge. Sorelli's out. Uh-oh, game time decision. Okay,
Yeah, day to
they
day
might be.
game time.
If Sorelli is out, that would put Pierre Edward that Bellemare as their second line center. I'm gonna be going with Toronto. that maybe that's why they went and picked up Riley Nash off of waivers. Maybe Dave Sorelli's out longer than we even know. I don't know, but I want to find out what's going on with that. If Sorelli's out, I just can't see that. You got Tavares, Marner, or sorry, Matthews and Tavares against Stamkos and whoever's in their second line center up the middle. Could be a rough night for Tampa tonight if that's the case. So I'm going to lean Toronto on this one. I didn't even notice that for that reason. And also, if
Yeah,
you're talking
that's
about the 4 games that they just won, or what the Tampa Bay's last 4 games, they won against Montreal. They barely won that game, which was ridiculous. They played like crap in that game. Spanked Philadelphia, which pretty much isn't really saying all that much. No,
no. Cool.
Boston right now is overrated, and they just barely beat them 3-2. Was that on the road though? Let me check that out while you continue talking there. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say when it comes to Toronto, we have to keep in mind IR Sandin's out with the knee injury now, who obviously is a good player for their team. A heart and soul player, and Spets is out with his suspension. Marner's, of course, out. So obviously you have a major key injury because you have Point and Kucherov already out. We're having, and also Cernak's day to day. Having Sorelli out on top of that, playing away, is definitely not going to help you, and it weakens your center core. I definitely think that leans it definitely more to the Toronto Maple Leafs, but the Tampa Bay Lightning have been able to figure it out before, so we'll just have to see what they're able to do going forward. Um, if they're able to kind of figure that out tonight, if Anthony Cirelli can't go. Belmore's a slide Swiss Army knife player, but he's a guy that's limited in a second line role. But also Ross Colton's been playing really well in the fourth line. So instead of Belmore, would you maybe flip him up and then put somebody else on your fourth line like Riley Nash or even Barry Boulet, and then let somebody else slide to the center position at that point and maneuver it around, do whatever you have to do. It'll be interesting to see what they do since Sorelli is a game time decision, so we probably won't know until right up to game time.
Yeah, it is a game time decision. That's what sucks about that. I'm kind of in the vein right now. If this is also their fourth game on the road as well. They got to play Ottawa tomorrow. So I mean,
On RotoWire, it
Vasilevsky could
says
certainly steal one of always, right? There's no doubt about that. But Toronto is shooting really good right now. Like their shooters are shooting. Nylander and everybody is playing fantastic. Now I do believe that they beat Columbus. They lost to Minnesota and Winnipeg, but I mean those were at the end of the road trip, especially against the Winnipeg game. They were gassed after that pretty hardcore game against Minnesota that they did steal a point on. But
well,
before
the
that, they
way
were
I
rubbing
will
out
say,
everybody. Colorado,
Mhm.
Anaheim, San Jose, LA. Pretty solid teams in there to be rubbing out pretty easily.
Yeah, the way I will say though, the way if Sorelli's out, especially that they have to play if they want to beat a team like Toronto, is how Minnesota beat them, which is they drew them into fights. They kind of got Toronto playing their game, playing undisciplined, and put them exactly where they wanted them. Where that's not what Toronto wants to be. They have guys that can fight like Simmons and et cetera, et cetera. But if you draw them into undisciplined play, that's the type of way that you can beat them. And that's kind of how Minnesota, by getting them into being overly chippy and kind of taking them away from their focus, they were able to beat them in that game. Where if Tampa's able to do that with guys like Patty Maroon, Perry, and others on that roster, then that can kind of help a little bit. Even Belmore, who can be scrappy at times, that can help a little bit there. But having Sorelli out, I would definitely give that lean a little bit more than two. Also with Campbell and Vazzy confirmed, this is going to be one of the best goalie matchups of the year, as Bill's hinted at. So I believe this would lean towards Toronto but it is tough since it's a game time decision. But I'm just still going to lean towards Toronto.
Yeah, and Toronto's got their own issues too. Mitchell Marner, of course, that's a pretty huge loss, and then Rasmus Sandin, the reason why Spezza went all crazy on Pionk was that he's the one that went neon Sandin. So you got that Christian Rubens kid there in your bottom four. Liljegren's been doing better than I thought he would this year. Hasn't been too bad. So they're going to be relying heavy on their top four, Toronto, in this game.
Yeah,
So
I do like that one kid though that you brought up, though, Rubens, because he's from covering the ECHL and stuff. He's one of those guys that worked his way through each level as an undrafted kid from Lafayette, where he's not going to do anything overly special for you, but being a third line pairing D-men, and he's with Ligren, who is somebody that can skate a bit. He's a guy that can block shots, hit people, and just fill his role really nicely as a third line defenseman that can just be like that anchor defenseman that gets in the lanes and blocks the shots and does all that simple stuff, plays well, pounds people along the boards, all that type of stuff. I liked watching him at the lower levels, the Lafayette kid there. I feel like he'll be a solid NHL defenseman, but no more than a 6'7" type guyer. But he'll be a guy that you can mix into your roster well, where it's nice to see him get a chance. Like we talked about with Lindgren, for somebody like him who's worked his tail off to get up from the ECHL as an undrafted kid, it's a heck of an opportunity for him now to be able to get the playing time he's getting because of the injuries to guys like Sandin.
yeah.
So,
All right. So yeah, I'm leaning Toronto on that one too, just more or less because Toronto is at home, and Tampa does have a few injuries there that is going to make it tough for them, and they've been on the road for 4 straight now. So I'm going to lean. I'm going to
yeah.
lean Toronto. Montreal, Chicago. It seems to be what the people in the chat would like to talk about now. And one of the questions is, do you think Price can turn Montreal around if he comes back after the offseason? That's a lot to ask, but I would say not likely, but I would also say Carey Price at his best can do things beyond our comprehension. So
Can he turn Montreal around? That depends what Bill's definition of turnaround is. If it's to do like have a much better second half that just builds towards next season, then yeah, I think he'll change the vibes of the locker room and bring some better energy to the team. But that's not much. That he's not going to do much more than that because I don't see this team turning into doing anything like the Blues did or anything like that. Where I think he'll be able to build them towards a better next year, but it's still going to be they're in a retooling process. But he'll definitely bring a much better energy and spark to the team once he comes in. That maybe they can have a at least closer to 500 after the new year and to the end of the season, and that would at least be something to build on for the Montreal Canadiens.
yeah, yeah. All I care about when it comes to Price right now is that he's in the right place, and that I just want to see a guy who I definitely will be rooting for him to do some great stuff there, no doubt about that. What happened to my live stream here? Yeah, I gotta get back on it again. I definitely would be rooting for him to do that. That's for sure, because he's made the decision to do what he did, and a goaltender like that can change any team at any time. It really kind of can change everything for a team to have a guy that changes the confidence of everybody. So it could have happened, sure. Tonight, Chicago, Montreal. Uh, I'm I think I'm going to go Chicago. Montreal has looked a lot better as of late. Let me look up there. They've looked better, but so is Chicago. I believe Fleury's going to be in net, and Allen hasn't had a strong season. Montreal is pretty injured this year still, so and I just don't think the fire's in them. That's really what it comes down to. No Gallagher, no Toffoli.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you really go with any Montreal in any spot right now?
yeah. Well, Chicago's also been average like
Yeah,
literally right down the line, mediocre average at 5-5 in their last 10. So where Montreal's won 2 games in their last 10.
yeah,
So I would say I would definitely lean towards the Blackhawks in this game, especially with Fleury confirmed. You have Jake Allen in net there. You also have a guy that's obviously not as big of a player as some of the other guys you mentioned in the Petrie, Prices being out, the Toffoli's, and of course Weber being out all season. But you do have a guy that plays a good forward game, and Christian Dvorak's out, another good bottom sixer, and Joel Armia's out. Edmondson's out, who's a good shot blocking defenseman. So like you have a lot of guys out
yeah,
for Montreal. Where when you look at Chicago, it's Jones, Raquel, Johnson, and Kahara, who of course got hit the other day. But it's not as key players. Where Tyler Johnson's a nice player to have mixed into your lineup, who's suffering unfortunately the neck injury right now. But they only have a couple injuries. You got a whole bucket list of people when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens. So I would definitely go with the Blackhawks because they've been the better of play team lately, but also they don't have as much hits in the trade, or not in the trade, in the injury department by far. So
yeah. Uh, yeah, that's the thing. It's just they're just too beat up. They could win, I suppose. They're at home. I mean, Chicago's not taking the world by storm here or anything like that. But when you got that many injuries in the lineup, like let's take a look at what their lineup's going to look like here. That's what I generally like to do. I look at lineups, see how long they've been injured for, or two. Do they have kids in there that are not used to the NHL grind? You know, they're going to be tired by now. They're playing Ryan Paling on their second line spot. I mean, he's not a second line center.
no, Pale
Laurent
more of a
Dauphin.
defensive
Yeah,
player
this
at the
is a team
AHL.
that
Yeah.
Jesse Yolanin, all of these guys, all of these lines haven't played together with each other pretty much all the way through. Like, I just can't see how Montreal is able to do it here. I just can't see it. I don't see them beating too many teams in the NHL right now with that lineup.
No, you have too many people. It's like how the Islanders had to go through so much people on the COVID protocol, and they were so beat down with people out of the lineup, and you saw the result. Montreal already was beat down with guys like Weber and Price out of the lineup. Then you have all these injuries added to it. They just been playing behind the 8 ball basically most of the season here. So
I got somebody asking about coming on here on YouTube. Unsubscribe. One of my clients is asking if I'm on live right now. So yeah, okay. So we got. You guys get all this free stuff. I got to go with Chicago. It's just that. Yeah, leave it at that. Next game. What do we got? We haven't talked about. Oh yeah, Chicago. So we did the Canadian teams. Uh,
Anaheim and Columbus is
yeah, and the Ducks have been on the road for a while. Blue Jackets just got spanked in Toronto. Well, they came back hard though. Uh, Merzlikins looks like he's having a difficult time out there right now.
the last handful of games. Yeah, he was. It looked like before that he was finding it a bit, and then all of a sudden in the last handful, he's been back down in the roller coaster season he's been having. I would have to lean with how the Ducks have been playing and have been the impressive team this far. They're definitely one of the best surprise teams of the league this far. I would have to lean towards the Anaheim Ducks with this game because they've been better of late. The Blue Jackets have been all right, but the Ducks have definitely just been one of those surprise teams all season. That yes, it's not necessarily too easy to beat Columbus in Columbus because we know how good of a fan base they have, even being a middle market team there. But I still think that I'm going to lean, even though Columbus is 9-3 at home. I've been so impressed with what the Ducks have done that I feel like they're going to be able to figure it out and get that road record up an extra peg there and beat the Blue Jackets because the energy the Ducks have been playing with of late and this entire season for the most part has just been infectious through the team. That whoever comes up looks like they're just riding and dying for the team. Basically, like it's a Fast and the Furious movie. So
Yeah, yeah. I want to go with. Is Anaheim on a back to back? Did they play? Was it? No, that wasn't last night that they played Buffalo, right? It was the night before they did that super,
no, that was the night.
super
Yeah,
sick pass. I would have to go with you on that one. I lean Ducks. Just wait a sec. I got.
yeah. The
Okay. Anyways, I wanted to look up. They've been on the road a while. That's the thing that concerns me about them. But right now, with their energy, I'm not sure it matters. Like they're playing with so much. They're having so much fun right now, and Zegras has brought that fun type energy to that team. That I don't know if it matters that they've been on. I think it might hit them more when they get home. It might hit them when they get home how tired they probably are. But right now, I think that they're running on such a good flow, it's almost impossible to go against them right now. This is 3 games in
yeah.
4 nights. They played Washington, Buffalo. Buffalo to Columbus isn't a huge trek. Oh my gosh. They're going to be playing 5. Okay, the next 2 after this, that's too much. They got a back to back, then Columbus, a day off and a back to back again. That's not even right.
Are we talking about for the
Yeah,
Ducks?
there's
Yeah.
no way they're beating Pittsburgh in St. Louis. No chance at all that they are. This is
Now, a good thing though, when you have, yes, you still obviously who's banged up now have the Getzlaffs and the Raquels and Silverberg veterans on your team, but when you have a young, thriving group coming up, those guys don't get tired, obviously tire out as quickly as the veterans and just keep playing with that young energy. So that does help a little bit compared to if you're a team like the Pittsburgh Penguins on that same stretch that you just mentioned. But yeah, I agree with you. Any team at that point is not going to be in the best success rate percentage wise to be able to beat teams like St. Louis or Pittsburgh. But
yeah. I think they can. I think they might be able to scrum up the energy to win this one in Columbus, but that and Gibson will be in here. Then Stoley has been playing well. He'll play against Pittsburgh, I guess. So man, and then as well as he's playing, you know, and then Gibson again. That's rough. I'm gonna lean Anaheim just because I think they'll throw everything in this one.
also, Gibson, I think, against Helmers Lincoln's been shaky of late. I feel like John Gibson wins definitely is going to be the guy that able to pull it out if it becomes a game that's a back and forth pace level game as well. If that does happen, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if that does happen, I would definitely lean Gibson there for sure. But on terms of closing out with the Ducks, a guy that I thought looked good in 9 games in McTavish, they loaned him back to Peterborough. He has 5 goals in 4 games, so he's doing exactly what they wanted, loading him back down there to get his game fully developed. So they have more talent, obviously, coming up the pipe, and they're already a impressive, ahead of their trend team this season. Where I thought this was going to be the year before they were kind of where they're at now, competing and showing they might be in the playoff race. Where next year was going to be the year they're doing this, but they're kind of a year ahead. So good for them.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, man, they're doing this. Vinny Lettieri, remember him? He played in the New York Rangers. They got him up right now. He's got
Mm-hmm.
3 goals in 7 games. I didn't even notice that. Wow, that's pretty cool. Between Sam Steele and Troy Terry, who's gone a little bit cold, but they're getting a full team effort from everybody right now. Buddy Robinson, who the heck is out? Henrique is out. Getzlaff is out. Comtois, Jones. They got a lot of injuries right now. Um,
Yeah, Buddy's mostly just been an AHL score a little bit, stand up for his team type of guy, but is good in the colder playoffs. So he's one of those guys that almost like TJ Tunyon, who was called up for LA the other day, who won the MVP in the AHL last year, a lifer in the AHL that is getting an opportunity right now. So
yeah. Sorry. It's a 6.
that's also a funny name, Buddy
Yeah.
Robinson. Like it sounds like a name that should be in a song. So
What are you getting? One? Oh, they're getting even. Um, hmm. It's going to be a grinded out game if Anaheim wins that. But going with energy, the energy of both teams, I'll lean Anaheim, but I'm not super confident. Columbus did come back hard on Toronto at the end there, and I think like you said, I think goaltending might save their butt tonight if Gibson's in. So that's a good thing to look at. Okay, let's
yeah,
go
exactly.
to Nashville and the Islanders finally got a win against the Ottawa Senators. Nashville had a surprise win against Detroit. I didn't think it would be that convincing. I didn't get to see, did Nedeljkovic drop the ball? Did you happen to see any of that game or what? But it was a very convincing win. And I have a hard time going against the Islanders. You keep on waiting for the Islanders to be the Islanders because I do believe it will happen this year.
Um, yeah. Uh, I feel like in this game right now they just have it listed as expected for Soros and Sorokin as I'm looking. I feel like in this game with how each team is played, I am waiting for the Islanders to break out. I'm looking Ekholm's out. They expect Soros, who's still listed day to day, to be able to play. Pulik's out and Nelson's of course out for the Islanders. They have the guys back in, so that might bring an added energy. It's just to me, I didn't expect the Predators to be 4 above 500 right now. I expected them to be a more because they don't have like people always talk about. You want that just A+ player to like basically the carrying weight of your team to be like a guy that just takes it. They kind of have an everybody chips in type team, so kind of like the Islanders usually play it. So I think this is a good matchup for two teams against each other. But with how the Preds have actually already been doing it this year, where we have to see it from the Islanders, that's why I'll lean Predators.
Yeah, well, they've got guys that are. It's weird. They have guys that are overachieving, although they're not overachieving. They're achieving what they always paid to do. And Granlund at 26 points in 25 games. I didn't see that. Matt Duchene having 25 points in 25 games. I mean, he always had the talent, but he's playing with a different attitude this year. And Ryan Johansson, 22 and 25. I didn't see that. That's that's 3 point a game players on that roster. Not too many players, not too many teams have 3 point a game players anymore.
Plus, yeah, plus like you said, they have everybody pulling the weight like we talked about when it came to the Anaheim Ducks. Where if you look at this team, you have Philip Tomasino as a young talent who's been getting fourth line minutes, but even still has 7 points, getting fourth line minutes on the season. You got to play fourth line minutes for you, and then Tanner Jeannot, who's had the best season he's had in his professional career, including the minors, and up top having 6 and 5 for you, down in your bottom six. So when you're getting it done from the top and bottom, and then Kaneen doesn't have a lot of points, but it seems like that might be the type of player who just plays a good game. Won't ever be the sexiest point producer, Luke Kaneen, but he's doing pretty well for them too. Where I think that's a team that just pushes is getting everybody to play with each other very well, where it's kind of a full team effort. That even though you have Gronlund, Duchesne, and Johansson with all the points, when you just watch that team, everybody kind of seems to chip in to get it done. And then you of course have Roman Yossi, who again looks like he's going to compete to the end of the year to potentially be your Norris guy this year with the way he's
Mm-hmm.
playing again. So that's a pretty good team down there in Nashville.
Barlow's picking Columbus. I think I'm off the game as a whole, but I'm going to go with the energy and the goaltending of uh, of Anaheim. You know, I think I'm going to go with that. But Merzlikins, I gotta. He has struggled the last little while. Is he going to remain in that spot, or is he going to play like we know? If he does, then it's probably a low scoring game too, right? Tired Anaheim team against Columbus team, but Columbus, on the other hand, has scored in bunches at times too. So it's a tough game. They're very it's a tough spot for both. Somebody was saying, do you think that Ducharme will be back? I personally do not think Ducharme will be back. What do you think?
I don't think so, but Gordon did say they're not making a change at his press conference. I watched the
Yeah,
press conference that
I
was on
think he's got a
YouTube that the
coach
Canadian.
that he won't be able to get until the off season. So that's what I think.
Yeah, yeah, that could be a thing. And under the radar prediction I made, just because he might not end up coming back into the league at this point because he does coach a little bit more old school. But if somebody does want him again, he's afraid he can speak both languages. Is I wouldn't be surprised if they do look. Hockey News tweeted this out when he got fired. If they do look, if they fire him at AV, that's just a bold
Oh,
take. That,
really?
uh, but I wouldn't be shocked if
Yeah, he does speak.
since they want
He
somebody
is
that can speak
bilingual.
both
Yeah.
languages up here, yeah, in Montreal, I wouldn't be surprised if
Actually, I
he's one
wouldn't
of
be
the people
surprised
that.
either because he has that personality of Montreal. He has that personality. He's very
And he's one of those guys that's hard on his like Hayes said. Like sometimes I think that's why past players we've seen certain guys complain about him because he is hard on his players because he wants you to get the most out of them. It comes out differently than a guy like Torch who you actually see in front of you yelling at them. You don't see AV doing that, but he is like he wants you to be the best you can be, and he does that more behind the scenes. So I feel like for some people it comes off as different where they come off and different from it. But with people like Hayes, Atkinson, and Broussard and others, Keith Yandel, they really enjoyed AV during their time and their careers, and so did the Sedins. Like a lot of those guys really did enjoy his
yeah.
presence. So
Yeah, I don't know what happened in Philly or whatever. AB did do some like he had a good energy going at the Rangers. I said that I didn't think he was going to probably coach again, honestly. But now that you brought up that Montreal thing, I don't know. There's a bit of a connection there because Gordon did coach for the Rangers. So, not that he coached during the time that Gordon was there or managed for the Rangers. Not, but he would have heard about AB a lot because a lot of the players that were still there, like Kreider, I'm pretty sure, Kreider, he would have known about AB. So it's possible. It's possible. He's got the Montreal personality. He's a very he's kind of eccentric, very what's the word I'm looking for? Um, how to explain it? He's like the life of the party, right? Yeah, and
yeah,
that's Montreal. Montreal people are like that. They're beautiful, wonderful, party like, happy go lucky guys there in Montreal. Like he's got that attitude that I think would really fit well
well,
with them.
AV has the funny. Yeah, he had like the press conferences I watched or was a part of with Nitty Gritty. He had the funny one-liners at the end when the team was doing somewhat successful, or at least even last year when they were in ruts, they weren't in a rut like this year, where like he would always have the like if we were in a little rut, the oh well, I can finally have my martini again tonight. Have a good night, everybody. Like he always has those funny throw-in things, and he's always great with the media. I do think he would mesh well. Plus, he's bilingual, so that's why I thought that was something that you could look to in Montreal. And then also Claude Julien, of course, left more because of health reasons than he left because of coaching reasons. Would they think of reuniting if he wanted to come back to coach?
I
But
guess there was a problem in the room, and I think that problem was with Price, with Julian. Now I think part of that had to do with Price's mentality more than Julian himself, because Julian never had that problem before for the years that he coached. So, does anybody think that Flyers? I don't think they ever should have hired the GM. Should they? He's not getting fired for a while yet. There's no way.
I don't think he'll get fired for a bit because you got rid of the coaches. I think this is Fletcher's last hurrah chance where if he decides to stick with Yo, um, I think you want to, like Anson Carter said, though, if you're going to stick with Yo throughout the season, and that's kind of what you have determined in your head right now. He brought this up on TNT, and I agree with him. You might want to just say we're going to stick with him for the season and try to find an assistant, because then the players are probably mentality wise going to play for that guy more because they know he's not going to be out the door in 2 weeks. Where obviously we did see the Blues with Greg Berube, but Greg Berube's also just a different breed of a human being. Where like that was also just an outlier situation. I feel like there was a kind of a proof to the point that Carter was making on TNT, which is if you know a guy might be gone, like say if for some stupid reason the Islanders do fire Barry Trotz, Mike Yo's probably then gone, and if the Flyers aren't idiotic, they would then hire Barry Trotz. So like you're not gonna you're gonna go, well, how long do we even know this guy's here for? If you commit and say Fletcher already hinted at it, he said we're probably gonna end up looking for an assistant before we look for a head coach. Well, then you should just say Mike Yo like Scott Gordon was, whether I agree with the situation or not. Like Gordon was to round out the season. Mike Yo is our head coach for the rest of this year. We're going to reassess it in the offseason. And then guys are going to buy more into his system because they don't think he's just going to be gone in five
Yeah.
minutes. So.
Oh, yeah, well, Islanders firing Barry Trotz would be ridiculous. It's not happening. No way. That'd be just stupid.
Well, no, I don't think that's going to
Well, I
happen
know
either.
that.
But
I'm just saying. I know what you're saying, though. I know what you're saying. I know you don't actually think so. I know that, but that would. I'm just saying. I've heard. You'd be surprised. I'm on the chat rooms a lot, and there's people out there asking for Trotz's head. It's just absolutely outrageous. Okay. Next game, we got St. Louis, Detroit. St. Louis is only going to have 11 forwards, I believe. They can't call anybody up because of cap space. They got COVID problems in the AHL, COVID problems in their own lineup, but they did that against Florida already. Now they're going up against Detroit. Hence the reason why Charlie Lindgren is going to be in. And Detroit, from what I understand, I think is going with Greiss. So this Detroit team is there, but not there. They're not quite there yet. And St. Louis, it's Berube gets the best out of his team. Like in a one-game scenario, Berube can have guys fight their bag off, and St. Louis has been doing that on occasions. And it seems like they play better where the more there is a reason for them not to be. Adversity, where the more adversity there is.
Yeah, and also with the Red Wings, you have Bertuzzi out, who's one of your top guys. You got Jacob Vrana out. That doesn't help. The Wings have been, again, another team that's out playing, I think, 3 games above 500 at this point, what we would have expected. But the Blues, they've been able to figure it out through all their injuries here, where playing at home, playing in front of that home crowd, they just kind of seem to have that blue collar, like next man up mentality down there in St. Louis, like they've always kind of had with the Berube era of coaching. That I feel like they're figuring it out, and this will be one of those ugly wins, but they'll find a way to squeak it out and get a win in this game.
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking that. I'm not sure what Lindgren's going to bring to the table here. So, I mean, the lineups still don't look too bad. You got Saad with O'Reilly and Kyrou. Kyrou's having a sweet year this year. Killer year, 25 points at 20. Finally, that kid is starting to become what they thought that he would become. He's using the speed really well, cutting to the net hard. This is his breakout year. Ryan O'Reilly, on the other hand, ever since he's come back from a little bit of a COVID thing, hasn't been doing all that well. Buchnevich is Buchnevich. He puts up points but doesn't do much else. It's weird. He annoys his coach a lot. He annoys people a lot. He doesn't really help the energy of that. But Barbashev, who I've always liked and always wondered why he never got more of a chance, has got 17 points in 25 games this year. Pretty killer. I wanted to mention that because I've always promoted that guy. So they're going to try to play Braden Shen down in the third line with Logan Brown, who actually has put up some points after leave.
He looks like he kind of looks like a new man in St. Louis. I did a video on that on my channel where it seems like maybe he can figure that out in St. Louis. Once you go to a new team, you get all the pressure of being the first overall pick of the former team off, because that's not what that fan base is looking. They're just looking at you as a new player into their franchise. Where so far in a couple games down there, I think it's been 3 or 4 he's played with them. He has 3 points, so he's looked pretty good down
I
there.
think what
So
happened is Ottawa tried to make him something he's not. He's not going to be, he's big, but he's never going to be your big bruiser guy. He's a playmaker guy, much the same as like a poor man's Thornton, right? He doesn't skate super great, but he gets it done. And they wanted him to be more physical and all that kind of stuff like that. And it just isn't part, it isn't his game. It's not going to be his game. So it looks like St. Louis has said, you know what, be whatever you're going to be, and we'll see how we can use you. And he's doing all right so far. So Yo does not relate well with the players, he says. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anything like that.
it it's something we have to wait and see. He's had times in St. Louis before the downfall where it was really bad at the end when Berube came in. He had some decent runs there. Obviously, you had in Minnesota, he was solid until Bruce Boudreau, oddly enough, was a guy that eventually, I think John Torchetti was a guy that was the interim in Minnesota between Boudreau then stepping in, just like Gordon was the interim between Hackstall and AV. But he was basically the guy that took over there. We'll have to see. I mean, I'm not going to make much of a judgment on Yo until he actually is able to get a practice in with the team. I didn't expect much to change in this week because got rid of a team. You got rid of a coach in a week that was full of games. So you didn't have time to practice. You just kind of knew it had to be done now after that terrible game against Tampa. But you also knew structurally it was going to lead to some difficulties for the guy that you promoted in Mike Yo, because he doesn't have an opportunity to implement anything other than a little by little, like in the morning skates, which he obviously is a very structural guy that he wants to be able to be a guy that has one of those practices.
Yeah,
So
it's funny also. I think it's possible. We've been talking Philly a lot, but there's been a lot going on there. It's possible AV went to them and said, you know, if things aren't working out here, this would be a really good time to let me go because that Montreal job is there. You know, it's possible that he's already had his agent, you know, that this is already happening. So, you know, that's why, because it was an odd time to fire a coach, like you said. It was right in the middle of where you can't have practice time. They really had no choice but to have a guy that was already there take over. It was just an odd time to me. They could have probably found a better time, but there might not have been a better time. It might have been AV saying, things aren't working out here. I get it. I want that job in Montreal. Could be.
yeah, yeah, and I agree with Bill. I feel like he is more of an X and O man than a personality man. Where AV obviously cares about the X and O's, but had a lot more outgoing personality. You're not going to see that from Mike Yo. He's more of an enclosed, just like I said, to the point hockey coach that just talks about the business and basically stays down to business, where AV would crack a joke here and there and be open up his personality a lot more.
I was just looking at what Detroit has played the last while here. Oh yeah, okay, Detroit. So they played. They played Nashville, St. Louis now. St. Louis. Um, so they played home against Florida. That was yeah. I'd throw a bit on Detroit. That's that would be it. But I mean, St. Louis could win that game. Like you said, they seem to battle adversity. They seem to be better when they're under adversity than they are when they get ahead or whatever. Like with the year they won the cup, it was all adversity. They played like that. Well, they didn't play like crap. They even the general manager at the time, Armstrong, said, "I don't understand why we're losing because they outplayed a lot of teams and still lost." And then they battled back, but they seemed to do really well in adversity. So St. Louis could grab it here, but it's a lot to ask with all those guys out of the lineup right now, and so.
Yeah, Detroit does have key pieces out of the lineup though themselves, so that's something that has to be factored into the equation as well.
Yeah, they got a couple. At this point, the lineup looks like pretty even. So, uh, yeah, it's a tough call. All right, we'll go to the next game. What do we got? 20 minutes.
Carolina and Calgary.
I'm probably Carolina. Like, do you see the way they crushed Winnipeg? But Calgary let her slip last night. And Calgary's on a back-to-back here, right? So, is it Carolina? Did Carolina win last night too, or was that the night before?
I no, there was only 4 games last
Yeah,
night. Carolina wasn't one of them. That was the night before.
yeah.
That was against Winnipeg on Tuesday.
So Calgary was in Winnipeg last night, or in San Jose last night, and they traveled home to play this game. Yeah, Carolina.
Well, Calgary also played. Calgary played too. Both of them played Tuesday, so they did have a gap in between. Neither of these teams played
Oh, okay.
yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. But they
So
still
it,
had to go
so
from San Jose to Calgary. Carolina had to go from Winnipeg to Calgary.
yeah. So that is a little bit closer. Also, Carolina, Calgary. Oddly enough, they've been one of those weird teams who hasn't had a lot of home games yet. Where at home they're 4-2-3. They're 11-4-2 on the road. Carolina's been one of the best road clubs this season. Where I'm trying to pull it up where it went, but I just remember seeing that earlier on the year when I saw it on NHL Network. 10-3-1 is where they're at on the road. So I feel like with the travel being more of a travel for the Flames, I would have to go with you on that one. And with the way the Flames have not had as much home opportunities and Carolina's taken advantage of other good teams at home, I think they'll be able to win this one. But this will be another one that's a barn burner game. That's a very fun game to
Yeah,
watch.
pretty hard to take either side right on that one. Calgary is playing fantastic, and they've been playing with a lot of resilience. Both of them have. Both of them, are well coached. Maybe the two best coaches in the league right now, Brindamore and Sutter. Uh, you Not much with. I mean, Markstrom's been playing fantastic, but so has Anderson. Carolina does. It would be. I'd be more on Carolina if they had Pesci and Angelo in. D'Angelo, I should say, in.
Yeah, so have Ethan
But they seem to
Bear
be
out.
doing really well without him too. So, and the depth on Carolina, I would take, like, just roster wise over Calgary's depth. So, and system wise, I think Carolina is at this point able to play a more varied system to beat somebody than Calgary. I think Calgary is kind of a one-trick pony, but the one trick is like stupendous. I kind of get that. Like, I haven't seen much trap or anything like that where Carolina can swing in a game. They can play super aggressive and then they'll kind of trap it. They'll go to a 1-1-3. They're freaking
Yeah,
they're hybrid. They're a great hybrid team.
yeah. Well, Carolina's been at this as a contender for a couple years now, where Calgary's been at the underachieving tag for a couple years now until this year, where they finally got themselves back to being where they want to be, and in kind of a surprise factor because we all thought just the way they were trending the last couple years, they weren't going to do this, but we probably should have expected it being who their head coach is. But I would still even lean Carolina saying that because yes, they have some key injuries, but they've been so good on the road, and like you said, being a hybrid team, I think that's going to be able to take advantage of the Flames, and they'll be able to have this be another great goaltending matchup between Anderson and Markstrom, where it'll probably be a close game throughout, but I think it'll just lean slightly to Carolina.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at like the shots for like who's I Carolina has got to have the advantage in shots. From every game I've watched them, they've shot. even teams that the games that they've lost, they had one game against Ottawa, they outshot them 50-23 or something like that. Like they're getting shots like crazy. So I would just for shot volume alone, it's going to be very difficult. Calgary isn't bad, but I'd have to look it up. But I'm pretty sure Carolina's got the edge when it comes to shots on goals. And that when you get two tight teams like this, that can often go a long way. Those extra shots, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, where if you look at goals for it leans Carolina 7-12, and then goals against is Carolina's second. Oh no, goals against is actually Calgary, which is in first, and then Carolina's in second. So it's going to be a good matchup for sure. But I think with the way Carolina's been able to just beat all these good teams on the road this far, that's how they've been so an impressive team as well as winning at home. I think they're going to be able to continue to do that and win tonight.
Yeah, tough game to call, but I'll probably lean Carolina too. I had them. I had Winnipeg as a possibility that I never put anything on it, and because that was a lot of flight and all that kind of stuff like that. Like if there was a spot, that was it. Um, and like this is again a toss up. A lot of toss ups this week. A lot of toss ups. Tough games. Uh, Boston, Edmonton. Boston on a back to back. Allmark is in. I just, again, I'm fading this game. I have no faith in Edmonton's defense at all. I just don't have faith in them at all. Boston's been
I don't.
losing some games that they probably deserve to win too recently. I just don't have faith in Edmonton's defense at all, especially without the guys that they have out.
Yeah, I don't have faith overall in the overall defense. I do like how Bouchard's looked this year and how obviously breaking the blocking record. You have Nurse back in there and how Russell's been able to just play his game. But you don't have the best overall defense. But I do like the move by Tibbet to put in. It looks like they're going to put in the backup tonight, which I think is to basically tell the team wake the hell up and play a better complete game in front of your goaltender. 5v5 on both sides, defensively, offensively, as well as the power play. Because, like he said before, this team's been winning mostly because of their special teams and the fact that they have been in other games been able to get the push 5-on-5 offense. It sure as heck hasn't been because of the defense. But I think putting in Stuart Skinner the way he's also been playing better this year himself, I think that was a wise move. He has a 9-2-1, a 2-7-1. The only reason he has a losing record is because of Edmonton, where if you can get that play in front of him, where I've seen it in a couple games that he's played this year, they seem to play with a little bit more jazz just because when Tibbet went to this before to try to wake up the overall team, it's not going to make the defense play better structurally, but it might give them a little bit more energy to play a much better game here. Where I'm going to lean because it's at home to Edmonton, and also you have Boston in back to backs. Allmark has been inconsistent this year, so that leans to me leaning toward Edmonton as well because I think they'll get the energy from the coach saying Skinner's been good this year, but you're still putting in your backup when Mikko Koskinen has had his best season for you. That has he's been colder of late, but has had his best season for you to date this year. And I think that's to try to be a wake up call to the team, to try to be an energizer to get them going again. Where I think hopefully it will work, but I think it has a chance of working because this Bruins team is a good Bruins team, but they also haven't been as consistent as past Bruin teams of past years. So I think if you can come out with the energy and fire and offensive energy early, this isn't a team like in past years that can come back like they used to in the Boston Bruins. So I'll lean towards the Edmonton Oilers.
Oh, I'm go. I think I'm going with Boston, but I probably just see a high scoring game here, and I'm going to give a little Pearlo dance to Mom and Imran. I'm pretty sure it's the first time I've ever seen him in here, so thanks for coming in, my friend. Thanks for the kind words as well. Um, I think I'm going to go more with the total here. It's just Skinner, Allmark hasn't been as good as I thought he was going to be this year so far. The Oilers do have a lot of guns to be able to put it past Allmark. Boston's legs will be a little tired, and I just have no faith in the Oilers D. So that all combined to me means to me that there's a very good chance it could be a high-scoring game. Skinner did have a good first two games, and I don't know if it was really his fault. Like I said, the defense has just been absolutely brutal. Especially ever since CC and Keith. If you lose CC and Keith, and that is big for you, then you're already in trouble to begin with. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, those are guys that you shouldn't hurt you too bad if you lose. And they did, and they do hurt. It does hurt them bad. Like they were hanging on already with them, and now they're not. Now
Well,
they're not
CC's
hanging
supposed
anymore.
to play.
Is he supposed to
CC's
play
supposed
tonight?
to.
Okay, well that'll help out a
Yeah,
little bit.
I think CC's supposed to play, and then Broberg they have slated in. Bouchard's been good this year. Where Broberg more having him with Barry, I don't think is a good pairing, which is why his numbers haven't looked as good. Where him as a whole, as a 20-year-old in the league, I don't think has looked too poor. I think it's you don't have anyone because of the defense, like you just highlighted, the players you have that pairs well with him. That's a big issue there. So
Yeah. Maybe CC will be like he's better than what they got, and they don't need much defense. They've proved that already. I mean, their record is very good.
mm-hmm.
They proved that they don't need the greatest defense to be successful. CC can move the puck out better than anybody they have there. Take the puck off people's sticks better than anybody. Certainly that poor Niemelen kid or whatever his name is. He's just not there. Like he's not ready to be in the NHL right now. Like they can't afford injuries on their defense at all. So it could be what moves it, but I need to see it. I don't want to touch either way. I would have to. Let's put it this way: the Oilers are dropping the ball if they don't win this game. That was a tough game against Vancouver. They played in overtime. They got to travel here. Edmonton should have the legs to beat this team. I just am I going to
Mm-hmm.
have the confidence to think that is the case? I don't have confidence in the Oilers right now. So let's look at like Boston has lost two. They lost against Tampa Bay. I mean Boston hasn't been lighting it on fire either, and I'm not a fan of their defense either. So it's quite the game. Quite the game. Similar teams in a lot of ways. Okay, we got what? We only got 7 minutes. Winnipeg, Seattle. Winnipeg, like I said, dropped the ball against Carolina, but Carolina is a really tough team. They travel to Seattle, who is here nor there. I would say like they're a here nor there team. I could almost see a draw here. It really depends on what they get out of Grubauer. And if they're both of these teams have similar defense where they have a difficult time moving in and out of the zone. I would give Seattle a better shot blocker team. I would give Winnipeg a better skating team. I'm going to say they beat Toronto, beat New Jersey. I think Winnipeg pulls it off.
Yeah, I think from the way that both teams have been for the majority of the season, I would normally lean Winnipeg. It's just Seattle's at home. They have been getting, even with the team just being solid. But Hockey Guy did a comparison where Vegas is such an outlier. For anybody that didn't see that video on expansion teams from St. Louis through now, where most teams have started more like Seattle, where the only outlier has really been Vegas, and then when teams like Tampa picked more veteran players, that's when they started a little bit more average. Where teams that went with the younger players as you go through it, like the Ducks and so forth, and the Ottawa Senators who really went young players, they started really bad when they came in as an expansion. But to be 9-14 in your first season, that's not bad. They are above 500 in their last 10, so they're playing better hockey one game above of late. So I think they're a team that is moving in the right direction, and for that reason, I'm going to lean towards at home the Seattle Kraken to pull off the upset. I think this is a game you have a chance at being 5-4-1. You got the overtime point in the other game too they've been a competitive team all season, and they've been more competitive of late. So I'll say that I'll roll with an upset on this one and go with the Kraken.
Who do they got in? I never even checked. Eberle's back, right? He's been basically their.
Jordan Eberle's back. Yeah, it's supposed to be Eberle, Gord, Schwartz, Johansson,
Schwartz is
Wember,
in too.
Appleton. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's because he was out for a while there. Eberle, Schwartz, Johansson, Wenberg, Appleton. I don't really like that line at all. McCann. I like McCann, Geeky, Tanev better.
I know. Yeah.
Donato can't play defense with the with playing with a guy that can only play defense.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
Sheehan and Donskoy, Lauzon, Fleury, Susie, Alexiak. I just have a feel like Winnipeg can beat teams like this because they've got those big gun shooters that Seattle really doesn't have. The only thing is will they take them lightly? And Winnipeg this year, more than any time I've ever seen them before, seems to have a tendency to not be on their A game all the time. They used to be like a portrait of consistency. If they lost, it was always a close loss. This year, I don't see that quite as much, and I don't know what the problem is with them that way. I can't put my finger on it, except for the fact that the defense really isn't very mobile, and maybe that's it. Maybe they're just getting. It's hard on these forwards to make up for the Logan Stanley and Dylan and Boileau and DeMello not being able to really move the puck out quick. They got to really play a full court game to have success. But having Ehlers, Connor, those guys are weapons that Seattle doesn't have, and maybe they have the advantage that way. But I agree. Like all of these games are really tough.
Yeah, and also I think, like we said a couple weeks ago on the podcast, Susie wasn't playing enough, and now he has 19 games, and it seems like just like he did in Minnesota, he's nothing overly sexy as a player, but he just does everything. He has 3 points, 3 assists, plays a good, clean game on defense, and kind of helps calm down your defense as a 27-year-old late blooming presence back there. So I think putting him in more as a guy that kind of can do those things I just said has helped their defense as a whole too. So
just seeing Charlie Lindgren. Still no other goaltender confirmations. What do we got? We got last game is we got 2 more games. Okay, do them real quick. Stars and Kings. Stars on a back-to-back, but they got Audie, and I freaking love that guy. They got Audie in. Jonathan Quick probably in for LA, but it doesn't say. In the chat there, Hajin tells us that Athanasiou will be back, as well as Dolan Anderson, which is really going to help their depth there. I think only thing I know about this game is it'll be low scoring.
Yeah, I believe it'll be low scoring. I think this one is really a coin toss, and also Bishop's back on a conditioning stint in the minors, so when it comes to goaltending, they're going to be an embarrassment of riches if they don't make a trade.
For sure.
Yeah, if they don't make a trade, the Dallas Stars. So they definitely got it going on when it comes to goaltenders down there. But I would have to lean just because of how hot Dallas has been, even though they lost that last tough game. I would still have to lean the Dallas Stars because they're coming off of being as hot as a firecracker. They suffered a tough loss. I think they're going to want vengeance tonight after blowing that game in the final 10 minutes against Vegas. So I think this is a game that I will lean towards them. But the Kings, they have been a good team at an even 10-10 record this year, still in the finishing phases of the retooling process or the rebuilding process, whatever you want to call it. I would lean the Stars in this game.
Yeah, I'm leaning that. That's a tough back-to-back to play. And the Kings are like, okay, they may not win, but they do play hard. They're not going to get outworked in this game, I don't think. which could help them a lot. And having Athanasiou in does mean a lot. That speed really helps them. They're a better team with Athanasiou in the lineup.
And he's been his best player since going to the LA Kings.
Absolutely.
He's been the best version
Yeah,
of
I
himself
think I'm
here.
going to lean LA here, but just I'm not 100% sure. I just think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Ottinger. The problem will be LA scoring on Ottinger. Ottinger is one of the best goaltenders in the league right now that nobody's talking about. He's awesome, and you've been talking about him for quite a while. So you've been talking about Ottinger for quite a while. Finally, the Wild and San Jose. And like I said, there's factors in everything here, and the Wild have again been on the road a long time. There was something else about this game can't remember what it was that had me wondering if the Wild were going to win it or not. But what do you got on the Wild about that game? I mean,
Is it Dumba? Dumba's out?
is Dumba
Could
out?
it have some?
Oh,
Yeah,
that does hurt.
illness, non-COVID. They listed it as a non-COVID illness. So Dumba's going to be out. Where the only guy that usually is in the lineup for San Jose, but not even close to the same impact, is Rudolph Bowsers and then Kuzanov, who they mix in and out as defenses out, so they don't have nearly as impactful of an injury.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it's at home. For the San Jose Sharks, they do have Aiden Hill in net, but he's been rebounding more lately and recovering from his early struggles. This is really Minnesota's been one of the hottest teams coming in, but they've been on the road for a
Yeah.
while. That's why I would lean Minnesota, but this is a really with the Sharks how they played, and it's particularly how good they played behind the energy of their home base. This is really probably the most flip the coin toss game, even though with how impressive Minnesota's been, they've been on the road so long. They're now playing a team in the Sharks who are a mighty impressive team in themselves and one of the bigger surprise teams along with the Ducks this year. Two surprise teams out there in California. This is really a flip the coin, but due to the Wild's season as a whole, I'll lean towards them ever so slightly.
Yeah, let's see. So who's going to be jumping in here? You said, okay, so Merrill and Goligoski. Oh, but Spurgeon's back in the lineup. Yeah, Dumba's out, but Spurgeon's in. So, but Spurgeon hasn't played in a while. Hartman, Zuccarello, Fiala, I agree. A lot of coin flippy stuff going on. Really tough, really tough. And I don't even know who's going to be in goal except for Hill. Hill's there, but we don't know for.
It says Talbot's confirmed on
Does it?
mine for Road Flyer. Yeah, it says Cam Talbot's confirmed.
And how long have they been? How
So
long have they been
up
on the
is
road for? Minnesota. It's been like 4 or 5 games, hasn't it?
But Talbot being confirmed, even though I love Capo Kakinen, he's just been struggling as a young guy this year. That's another reason why I would lean a little bit to Minnesota due to the fact that their captain's back, even though Dumba's out, and then you have your guy that's one of the top seven, probably thinking of six guys that maybe could be before him. Somewhere in there in that range for the Vezina if it ended right now, maybe even top five.
Who, Talbot?
With how he's picked up,
Lately,
yeah, because he's
lately,
picked up
lately
range.
has
Yeah,
been good.
yeah, but all that like he was not great to start the season, but he did all right. Then Kokkonen wasn't the best, so they had to go back to him. And then once they went back to him, he's been getting better and better until he's finally just went back to being the Cam Talbot when he first started in Minnesota the last basically 2 weeks.
I just checked. You
So
know what? They haven't been on the road that long. Not as long as I thought. They were at home against Toronto. So this is like their second game on the road. That's it. I thought it was longer than that. My computer's moving so slow because I got OBS on. Oh.
yeah, and Talbot also has a 951 save percentage during this 5 game
No, I'm
winning
taking the
streak.
Wild.
And since November, yeah, he's been 9-3-0 with a
Yeah,
2.66
I
and a 9.22. So like he's been ever since the start of last month. He's
San
been
Jose
going
just beat
ballistic.
Calgary, but Calgary was on the road for a long time. Calgary was really on. They were tired. I'm taking the Wild over Minnesota here. I think, yeah. Yep, that's it, everybody. That's our full 42. We actually went long on the long. Let me get us up there. This is Joe in the chat here. If you don't know, it's Pro Joe. Call him. He's the professor, as you can tell. Sam Fonoff, welcome, my friend. Wild mind. Oh, Wild's going to destroy. He thinks Sam Fonoff. I gave you a little Pearlo dance there. Send you a Pearls of Wisdom necklace. I think you're new in here. Pearlo coptered right to your door. This is Pro Joe. Call him Pro Joe because what you hear about him talking about hockey right now, him and I go at it quite a bit. Not go at it like, but go back and forth about it. He knows that about just about every sport. Got to listen to him. Check him out at the Sports Fanatic News. Susie is underrated, totally underrated. Absolutely, no doubt about it. Sports Fanatic News. He talks just like this about every sport there. He's putting out content constantly all the time. One of the smartest minds in sports that I've ever known. And I mean that. I totally mean that. You really want to check him out. If you're not watching him, you're missing out. Sports Fanatic News, check him out. He also does a show with Steel. What's the show called? For the Steel Flyers All Sports Network that we're part of?
Oh, the JB and Steel show is the one that I do with Steel that I started up. We had our third episode come out this week. That you can check that out on my channel, Sports Fanatic News, in the Raw Skype version, or with all the bells and whistles show on Steel's channel, Steel Flyers.
Right. And talking about that, we got Manscaped. Don't forget, Google up that Manscaped. If you put, do you have it on yours too? You have it too? Promo code PERLODANCE and you'll get 20% off of all products. Tell you the products are fantastic. Google Manscaped, look it up. If we get 10 people hit that link, they are going to sponsor us for life. And I would love to have them because they're a great product. See you later. Okay, I'll be back on tomorrow. I might be on earlier tomorrow. Be watching for the update. My wife has been working a lot. I think she wants to take an early day tomorrow, and I'll do it that way. But normally, I'm going to go back to this 1:30, 3:30 concept, or 3:30, 5:30 if you're Eastern or what have you. It looked like we had a pretty good group here today. So, Pro Joe, you say your goodbyes, and we're going to head our way.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys all the games tonight. It's going to be a fun one, and obviously be back on soon to talk with Pearlo about the great games. Thank you all for joining us. Subscribe here to the great Pearlo Wisdom and to the great Steel Flyers that we do work for, and over at my Sports Fanatic News page where we cover all sports, mainly baseball and hockey, but we do a lot of football stuff too, and then mix in the basketball. So stay safe out there, everybody, and enjoy your evening.
See you later, everybody. See you tomorrow.